Thank you very much, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for joining me on the India Economic Conclave for the South that the Times Now and the Times Network is presenting. As Commerce, Industry, as well as Railways Minister, I want to flag to you the sentiment in the market is that we've been calling it on the brink of an economic slowdown, but I would think that it's time to use the R word. Are we in the middle of a real recession?
At the outset, Navika ji, I'd like to pay my tributes to Honorable Shri Arun Jaitley ji, somebody who has steered India, Indian development, Indian growth story extremely well in the last 5 years, somebody who has contributed to nation building for over 4 decades and truly brought to center stage of Indian politics high level of intellect, high level of integrity, high level of thinking in terms of making India a developed nation, a superpower. Somebody we miss very deeply today, and somebody who was a mentor to many of us, somebody who was like more than a parent, taking us forward in politics, taking us with the right level of understanding through our work in different ministries. We miss him terribly, and for all of us, it's an irreparable loss. My tributes to him, and I pray that God gives the strength to all his well-wishers, to his family, to bear this irreparable loss. In terms of your question right now, I think the entire world today is going through a tumultuous period. The fact that US and China are engaged in a trade war, the fact that established rule-based systems in the world are under stress, and I would think the closing down of a number of practices which for many years gave an artificial sense of well-being, but in reality damaged the Indian economy, the Indian way of working, the way of doing business, almost deeply, so deeply that it's had a very long-lasting impact, something which we have had to struggle with for a long period. I think we are seeing the last few remnants of those legacy issues which are getting sorted out. As you are well aware, we sorted out the entire banking system and brought it to a stage of working with honesty, working for the best interests of the country. We changed the way government works in the country to a more honest system of governance, good governance, to an honest system of giving any natural resource to the business community, ensuring equal opportunity for all. We are currently in a phase where the last remnants of that, the cleaning up of the NBFC sector, cleaning up of the real estate sector, creating transparent processes right down to the bottom, having started at the top, ensuring that the systems at the bottom also start cleaning up.
I'm sorry,
I think we're going through that process right now.
I'm tempted to interrupt you because you talked about the banking sector and just the recent developments of 1.76 lakh crores coming to the government from the RBI has been called by Rahul Gandhi as the loot of the RBI. You know, if everything is working fine, if the banking sector has been strengthened and set right by you, why would there be this need to, use a circuitous method to inject more money from RBI into the government's coffers?
First of all, I think you need to understand what these reserves are. Of course, Mr. Gandhi can say what he likes, but then beyond the point you stop debating with uneducated or uninformed persons who can't understand elementary economics. But the fact of the matter is the Reserve Bank of India over a period of time has been carrying out several operations. Out of this 1.76 lakh crores, 1.23 lakh crores is the current year surplus generated by the Reserve Bank. And that surplus is in the normal course. It belongs to the shareholders. The shareholders are the people of India, the government of India. So effectively, it's the current year income of 1.23 lakh crores, which is being transferred back to the government, which is its rightful due in any case in every year. Coming to the reserves, I think this has been the most conservative transfer of excess reserves from the Reserve Bank. Personally, if you ask me, I think this is grossly inadequate. The Reserve Bank is sitting with a large amount of unproductive capital, which it is not using, which is lying in foreign banks and giving us barely any return. And to my mind, the committee, the Bimal Jalan committee, has kept a very conservative framework, which is something the government has accepted or the RBI has accepted with due respect. But 50,000 crores is barely nothing.
It's not a loot?
Absolutely not. The
So
Reserve
what would
Bank
you
has
like
more
to
than 10
explain?
lakh.
What would you like to
I'll
explain to
explain it.
Rahul Gandhi?
Reserve Bank is sitting with more than 10 lakh crores of reserves. I'll give you one simple and very easy to understand analogy, which I hope all your audience today will also understand very easily. The Reserve Bank has more than 7 lakh crores. Probably it may be closer to 8 today. 8 lakh crores, which it calls as the revaluation reserve. Now, it's not a revaluation reserve which, as some people suggest, is not earned income of the Reserve Bank. After all, Reserve Bank is the repository of all our foreign exchange. It has $426 billion, which it holds as foreign exchange reserves. At today's value, of time and sold at different points of time. Occasionally they do market operations. And then this 7-8 lakh crores will be used. Now you tell me, Navikaji, you've been a business correspondent, you've been a business journalist, you've studied economics. Does the Reserve Bank ever foresee a position where they will need to intervene and the rupee will become 50 rupees to a dollar? Point one. Point two, should the rupee be appreciating beyond a stage, it will make the Indian economy uncompetitive in the world market.
Absolutely. And your exports, which are in any case on a downswing.
They're not in a downswing, they're now on an upswing.
June numbers are rather distressing.
Don't look at one month here and there. The last year we grew 8.5%.
But we are today at 2014 levels.
That's because the world economy has not grown significantly in terms of international trade.
But in a 5 trillion economy that you've set the bar for this
now I'm
country.
looking for significantly more exports, and I'll come to that in a moment. But let me finish the RBI story. With 7 or 8 lakh crores of reserves, if the rupee was to start appreciating, Reserve Bank will obviously intervene. Once it intervenes, it will in fact accumulate even more reserves. And the reserves will go up. Forget ever being able to use this reserve. So this is money which is lying with the Reserve Bank. Unproductive use of this money, which can go to serve the people of India, which can help to support the economy, is lying with the Reserve Bank. This argument that it is unrealized income, to my mind, doesn't hold water. I've read a number of studies, even from very reputed international research houses, which suggest that this kind of level of reserve is beyond what any country in the world has.
So, Mr. Piyush Goyal, you know, even today, many people are questioning the fact that when the economy was on a smooth sail, there were shocks that were given to the economy. Shocks in the form of the demo in November 2016, shocks in the form of GST, which was a welcome reform, but the implementation has still had some sort of roadblocks which have had an impact. Then we are talking about the IL&FS scam, and then of course the trade wars between US and China. Are these 4 issues something that India could have really done something by preempting the problems and having a solution before the problems set in?
First of all, the demon had to be a shock effect. It couldn't have been done with great amount of consultations and discussion, because it would have given an opportunity to people to park away their wealth, and we would never have been able to get the address of that money which has come into the banks. And we have an address, we are able to pinpoint who held that money and tax that money wherever it calls for a tax. In any case, now that's become productive wealth that will go to serve the people of India and give a boost to the economy.
So let me ask you, the amount of taxes that you may have realized versus the slowdown of the economy, what you have let go in terms of income
We had
generation.
heard eminent economists, including a former Prime Minister, talk of the economy being shattered and this and that. It didn't have an impact beyond 2 or 3 quarters, but it had a huge impact in the eyes and minds of the people of India, who now trust that here is a government which has Mr. Modi at its helm of affairs, which had Mr. Jetli managing the economy very efficiently, and which has demonstrated to the world that India is going to be an honest economy. Gone are the days of the past where sab kuch chalta hai. All sorts of irregularities were almost justified that governments run this way and economies run this way. Today we are poised to be an honest economy, and I think one of the fundamental reasons and one of the fundamental change that impacted the people's mind that we'll have to go towards a more honest economy is demonetization. Mr. Jetli had put it very beautifully when he called it the new normal. Today the new normal is honesty. Earlier the assumption was it's a dishonest system. Taking that forward, GST, just imagine getting 36 different stakeholders, states, union territories, sit on one table, define the entire process, procedure, rates, unanimously, have more than 35, 40 meetings where every decision is taken with due consultation and with no dissent. I think it's a historical achievement which people could never have imagined is possible. But Mr. Jetli, Mr. Modi, this leadership could do it. Having achieved that, and a nation which has common taxation, obviously there are bound to be glitches. Look up the history of the world. GST, wherever it was introduced, it led to huge inflation and it led to the government in power losing the next election. India has changed the narrative. Neither did we have inflation post GST, neither did we burden the people with additional tax. We removed all the inefficiencies in the system, and we came back into government with a bigger majority, again because the people trust this government. Having said that,
back to
having
government,
said
but
that,
jobs,
if there are
investments,
issues,
make in India.
related to GST, you see Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman literally interacting daily with different sections. She has just made the announcement that whatever issues are there, we are wanting to listen and resolve them, and this is a responsive government.
No, so let me ask you, our issue is with the sentiment, and at the moment the sentiment is what needs to be addressed. And in the sentiment, some announcements of stimulus or some money coming in from here or there, is it going to sort out our problems? Because Make in India has remained a slogan. We haven't seen the kind of fillip to the manufacturing sector as we would have expected, as was targeted. Have we looked at the fact that we were talking about a 5 trillion economy by 2022 or 2024. We're way off that mark right now. And just look at the way every sector is responding, whether it's the automobile sector, whether it is the non-oil export sector, whether it is consumer demand, everything is subdued and in the red.
Well, I think let's set the perspective right. First of all, Make in India is there to stay, and we are very confident that ultimately India's competitive and comparative advantages as a manufacturing hub will help us develop more and more industrial base here. Let me explain. But you are well aware that in that period 8 to 13, when we did indiscriminately large investments, huge capacities were created, which capacities, unless they get consumed, it's going to be impossible to encourage anybody for fresh investment on the back of unutilized capacities. So obviously this is a period where you saw growth, which means unproductive capacities which were lying idle have now been brought into production, have been productionized. As the capacity utilization gets filled up, you'll obviously see new investments only come up then. Nobody is going to invest in an industry where you already had surplus capacity, a lot of it which was getting sick. Look at steel, for example. We had created more capacity than the demand at that point of time, and company after company was becoming sick. Also, we had the problem of irregularities committed by those promoters. We are ensuring that those irregularities are being addressed and people are taken to task. On the other hand, the steel industry will pick up. Of course, it will have its quarterly ups and downs based on international market price, possibly local demand goes up and down, rains, elections, so many factors come in. But broadly, as the capacities get used up, you will see new investments coming in the sector. Cement has been doing well consistently because there was a big thrust for infrastructure development. Auto sector also, the Honorable Supreme Court ordered that we switch over to the new technology, the BS6. There was a decision that insurance, because a lot of people don't take out third-party insurance, will have to be taken out for 3 years. And I think a few announcements which were avoidable led to a little bit of turmoil in the sector.
Announcements like on the government's part?
On think tank's part and some announcements which could have been avoidable. We have Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman who has come and clarified all these issues. It's given a big leg up and confidence in the automobile sector. We are going to promote the sector in a big way, both in the e-vehicles and in the combustion engine vehicle sector. We're going to ensure a more orderly behavior in terms of pollution and environment, which is a matter of concern for all of us, including the Times group, which runs big campaigns for a cleaner and better environment. So I think we have to balance all of these interests. Nirmala ji has very rightly clarified and ensured that none of the misapprehensions remain in the system. And I had a conversation with the Maruti chairman, for example. He said, look, this is not something which is totally irrational or something which we should be perturbed to the extent that is being made out in the newspapers. Auto industry has had such periods. There have been periods in the past closer to the election where there has been a downturn in auto sales. The BS 4 to 6 transition has left people thinking that maybe we should wait till April so that we buy a BS 6 vehicle which is cleaner. In an environmentally conscious nation, there's a lot of people who think that way. Also, there is a growth of Uber and Ola and all these technologies which have possibly led to more and more shared usage of assets, which will have some impact on the auto industry. So I think we have to look at the situation more holistically, then jump to a conclusion that the heavens have fallen on our head. It's not an asterisk oblique story.
Well, growth prospects have been really revised downwards. We've been for 14 years in the 7 and 7 plus GDP growth rate region. We are now talking about revision downwards to 6.7. Clearly, there is something to worry. While you may give all these confidence building measures, and they are important in the sense of trying to improve the sentiment, the fact is markets have been falling. The fact is savings rate is in the red, it's in the negative. Investments are not coming forward, and exports are on a slide. You may say that's only 1 month's figure, but overall we are still at the 2014 levels. Are these not issues that we should be worried about? And what is our roadmap to come out of this situation?
Well, I think 2 or 3 things which are worth noting in that. One is, one factor which had caused some of the concerns was around liquidity and credit flow, which Nirmala ji has addressed in her recent announcements. We are also working together to look at what we can do for export credit to flow much faster and at lower rates of interest. Credit and liquidity is like an engine, is like an oil in an engine. It helps the flow and the speed at which the engine runs. And I think that's one issue that's clearly been on our agenda, and we are confident that that will change. It got impacted largely because of the cleanup of the banking system, followed by the, in some sense, some of the misdemeanors of the NBFC sector coming to fore. I think most of those issues are behind us. We may have had a problem with ILFS, which then helped the whole NBFC come into focus, and therefore some of the wrong practices or the wrong kind of lending practices that they had came to fore, and they're coming home to roost. I think this will be good for the system. It will be good for organized behavior of the credit markets. The people in the credit markets also have got confidence with the announcements that Nirmala ji said about the CVC guidelines, which will help bankers take decisions with more confidence. The settlement mechanisms have been streamlined. IBC is already functioning, and with the clarifications made in the last parliament session, I think the IBC decisions also will start coming out now, and ultimately any new law takes some time to really get all the clarity in it, which process we have gone through in the last 2.5 years. So to my mind, the enablers are all in place. For exports, we are working actively to see what we can do with the free trade agreements which we got in legacy. I don't know if you are even aware, 2009, 10, 11 period, we made free trade agreements with Korea, with Japan, with
Singapore.
ASEAN countries, ASEAN,
Yeah.
including Singapore, which were completely one-sided. India did not demand what we should have demanded, which were our strengths. We literally gave it on a platter. And if you talk to some of those who were part of the discussions at that time, the then government literally aborted discussions and said, oh, the Prime Minister is meeting the Prime Minister of the foreign country and we have to sign FTA. Whatever it is now, just pack up and we sign as it is. Some of the stories I'm hearing, having taken charge 2 months back, I'm aghast at how this government, the UPA government used to take foreign trade and foreign policy.
So it's taken us 5 years to realize that everything has to be blamed on the
It's
UPA
not that,
government.
it's a
That's what
reality.
people.
It's a
that's what
reality.
people will ask. That
Ma'am, it's
first,
a reality. And for the last few years, we've been trying to set that right through action on many of the irrational imports that came in. You know, gold has started coming in through the FTA route. Right now, I'm grappling with so many products where we have unfair trade practices being carried out by the other parties, which we've been in correspondence, we've been arguing, we've been fighting with these countries, and now we may have to take a little tougher stand on some of these.
so
systems
reopening the
that we have.
FTAs.
Everything is possible.
So Mr. Piyush Goyal, people will now turn around and ask, A, it's been 5 years since your government has been in power. This is your second term. And the fact is that many of these things should have been known earlier. Some shock treatment that you've given added to the some things that are still being set right. Together, both of these, are they responsible for the slowdown, for recession that we are currently facing?
I don't think we've come to a recession. Recession is a stage when growth disappears. I mean, whether growth is 7% or 6.7%, I don't think it goes into a R word as you put it. Certainly we are concerned, certainly we are conscious of our responsibilities, otherwise we wouldn't have been on an overdrive in terms of setting right more and more of the policy agenda. We are a more empowered government now that we have confidence we can get a lot of things done in both houses of parliament. So we are also looking at improving the frameworks even further to ensure a more level playing field and a more balanced opportunity to domestic manufacturers to compete with countries who have certain benefits which we don't. I mean, there are countries in the world which literally have a hire and fire policy. We don't have that. So we'll have to make up for that with some other benefit or some other way.
So you're not saying labor reforms and hire and fire will come in, because frankly,
I don't think
sab
it's
fired
required.
hai, sab sadak par hai.
I don't think it's required. A, that policy is not required, or fired to sab nahi hai.
I
मेरे
mean,
ख्याल से,
unemployment is high.
by the way, unemployment figure when it was 2% and 3%, did you ever believe it? Did you ever believe that India had 2%, 3% unemployment? I want to know.
Now you don't even have numbers.
I want to
Now
know.
you don't even have numbers.
I want to know, did
You
you ever
said you will
believe it?
give us transparent numbers, which still hasn't happened, so we are still waiting.
No, the numbers as they have come out are there. The policy makers or
The same numbers that you denied
Because-
before
because
elections
you're-
are the
because-
ones which you have accepted post-election.
We've not accepted, we've taken it out for lack of time to be able to still complete it. But they are working on trying to get more robust numbers. But I would urge you to talk to some farmer. I would urge you to talk to somebody running a small industry. He'll tell you he finds it difficult to get people for working. You look at your own situation in Delhi. You try to get a good driver, you try to get a good carpenter. It's extremely difficult to get it. So it's not as if there is unemployment which has gone haywire or beyond the stage. Having said that, we are conscious that we have to skill our people better. We are conscious that we have to create more and more opportunities for good jobs, for better skilled jobs, for better earning opportunities, increase the levels of income of people. But let me tell you, it's not something that has been created in the last 6 months or 1 year or even 2 months. I remember as a student when I was studying probably in 11th, 12th in college days, we used to read about underemployment and unemployment at that time. It's not, but the figures
That
were-
we have read in,
Figures-
John Maynard Keynes' times as well.
figures never reflected the reality in India the way it should. And we are trying to make the systems more robust. We are trying to find out what the extent of impact Mudra loans and the credit flow to small industry and small entrepreneurs has had, trying to study the impact of new age technologies on job creation and job retention and new types of jobs that will be created. So I think
more
it's a
stimulus
period.
on the way.
Well, wording the adjective, you can give what you like, but action, certainly lots of action on the way.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, before I let you go, I want you to really address our audiences and especially tell them about South. What really can India do to really get back on the growth curve, and how can the South of India, because this is the India Economic Conclave South chapter, which I'd like you to tell our audience today.
Thank you very much, Navika ji, and compliments to the Times group for taking the India Economic Conclave to South India. I've had the privilege of participating in your programs earlier also, and I think it's a very powerful forum which helps bring to the table different viewpoints, gives us as policymakers a lot of food for thought, a lot of inputs from people who participate in these conclaves. And I'm sure today's discussion also will throw up some new ideas, some new thoughts, which I do hope you will share with us to be able to action it. But the South is a very, very, very important part of India's growth and economic story. I mean, effectively 30% of our GDP comes from the states of South India. Today, if you look at any of the states, whether it's Tamil Nadu and the huge impact the auto sector has had in Tamil Nadu, or the impact that Karnataka has provided to the entire IT ecosystem, or the good work that, let's say, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh have also done on IT, on pharma. So each of these states have created unique value propositions, which have helped the country grow, helped the economy grow. I think the southern part of India is now poised for 3 or 4 very important and large initiatives. One is they are blessed with a huge coastline, which means there's big potential in the fisheries sector. It's an area which I personally am taking a lot of interest in. I'm very keen that we promote fisheries in a big way. It provides livelihood to, I'm told, between 10 and 15 million families. And I think the Indian true potential on fisheries remains unexploited. So that's going to be a big focus and thrust area of this government, which I think will impact southern states quite a bit. Tourism is another area which Honorable Prime Minister is very keen to focus and expand. Another opportunity for places like Kerala, places like Hampi, and tourism is an area where we can see some big action happening in South India. Independent industries, if one were to see, you find most of the startup world in Bangalore. I recently attended your sister publication, Economic Times Startup Awards in Bangalore also. Look at the huge impact the South has had in terms of bringing defense to the countries. As we increase the Make in India defense program, I think there will be an opportunity for South India to play a big role. In terms of export, we need good port facilities. South India has some of the good ports and some ports with spare capacities. I think that's an area where we can look at good thrust in growth in the years to come. So South, for me, is a very, very important sector, area of operation in terms of industrial promotion, industrial internal trade, as well as export promotion. And I have no doubt in my mind that the people of South India, being very laborious, being very intelligent, being very competent, very skilled, will certainly have opportunities in a growing India, aspiring to be a 5 trillion economy by 2025, aspiring to take it to a 10 trillion and become one of the top 3 or 4 economies in the world within the next 12 or 13 years. I think the southern parts of India, with their advanced level of infrastructure, with their advanced level of education, which is a great privilege in South India, that the literacy levels and the quality of education is very high. I have no doubt in my mind that South India is going to play a very, very important role. And while I declare the Times Group India Economic Conclave dedicated to the southern region open today, I'm also very, very confident that your conclave will help us with ideas, help us to take our programs to South India in a much more focused and better way, and will help the people of South India realize what is happening in the country and where the opportunities are.
Well, we do hope that message coming in from Commerce, Industry and Railways Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, will actually help in shifting the mood, shifting the sentiment. That's something that we're looking forward to. And thanks very much, Mr. Goyal from Times Network for really being there and supporting every initiative of ours, especially at a time when we're looking this time at the economy specifically, because it is the economy that will meet the aspirations of New India.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.